Cool. Hey, everybody. Welcome to May Office Hours. Really excited to have Greg and Morgan from Jolly SEO slash Sorcery. You guys can fill us in on those two businesses, how they work together. Um, uh, the primary reason that I thought it'd be amazing to have you guys on is because I was recently introduced to Jolly SEO, which is this digital PR slash link building service that you've created. It's the only one of these I've ever seen that I was like, oh, that actually can work. That's awesome. Usually like link building is this like black box. There's a lot of bad information out there on it. So I thought, why not bring on these two guys who have made this awesome service and actually now a SaaS product to go along with it, to come on and talk about their careers, what they've learned, why they're building this, how it's going, et cetera. So I'll get out of the way. Would each of you guys mind introing yourselves and just telling us a little bit about your background in content and SEO as well?
Sure. I'll go ahead. So I'm Morgan Taylor, one of the co-founders at Jolly SEO and at Link Sorcery. So give a little background on myself. First of all, Greg and I have known each other for a long time, since high school. So going on like 20 years almost now. Maybe about 6 years ago, I started getting involved in content. I know Greg had been doing it longer. We started Jolly originally as a sort of content agency, and it kind of just morphed into what it is today. We realized, the value in providing SEO, and particularly backlinks, and it kind of all revolved around a clever idea that Greg kind of brought to the table about doing specifically help a reporter out type of link building, and that's kind of blossomed into a successful business. We do other link building as well, all white hat, non-paid. And as far as link sorcery goes, if anything, I'll let Greg give a little bit of background on link sorcery. Oh, okay. Well, that was a tool that actually we had, we were doing stuff in-house. We were using a lot of, we were doing stuff on Airtable, Google Sheets. We wanted to turn this into something that anybody could use in a way that would help them get backlinks through Help a Reporter Out, specifically in other journalistic sourcing platforms. So that's what Link Sorcery is today, separate company, but it's a fully, fleshed out app that reflects, the methods, the tools we used in-house to do this successfully. And we hope to take it a lot further than just that as well.
And I'm Greg Heilers. My buddy Morgan spent a lot of our joint time together. Just a few years before him, I got into content. I did editing. I started as a proofreader, right? And did editing, started writing when I realized the writers have more flexibility, make more money. Then Morgan was like, yo, dude, but just to be clear, I did content mill level stuff for like a full year or two. So I don't know why, anyway, we could get into content mill kind of work if we really want to. But Morgan proposed, like, dude, if you're doing so much of this stuff, why don't we build a team together? And we did a really big project for us at the time, still is one of our bigger ones. And that started our content agency days, but I was still freelancing on the side. It was really rough building a brand. I'm sure some people could relate, and building a business. The profit isn't always there from day one. Maybe revenue could be there. So on the side, a client brought this idea of, look, why don't you write as me, doing outreach to journalists, help me get my brand in some publications, almost like PR work. And it really caught my interest. Instead of writing 2,000 word articles that take 10 hours, this past the content mill days, once I had some good freelance work going, all of a sudden it was like 200 words. Like I could research a topic for 10 minutes, come back, write a little email, and move on to the next topic. So it was really exciting. It's a cool tactic. We'd be happy to share more about the tactic today, but I think Morgan gave a lot of the story of what happened after that once we kind of solidified our work together around that service.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool. Could you talk a little bit about running a content agency and then narrowing down to what is now Jolly?
Yeah, so you hear this like niche down when you're an early stage career or like early stage company. And I think a lot of us feel this push and pull, like I don't want to roll out all the money on the table with all these other service options that I could offer. At least for us as two early stage SEO career guys, we didn't have a lot of skills. So offering all those other things was dangerous, right? We'd be like, yeah, we'll run your PPC. We haven't run a campaign yet, but we'll run your PPC. And content, we actually did execute dozens of campaigns. Our pain point was we never made it to content strategy level. We weren't the guys able to do at that time, over 5 years ago, in-depth keyword research, like competitor research, really think about content marketing in terms of, I don't, you're a content marketer, so I don't want to pigeonhole you, but like you've done a lot of content marketing, I presume, and so that was our real obstacle to get to the next level, and we were struggling. We never quite emerged as a premium brand, even maybe a mid-tier brand in our content days, because we were missing that element of providing strategy. We needed the client to bring the strategy, and at least for us, in my opinion, of what went quote unquote wrong, Morgan, maybe you could chime in from your perspective, is that put us in a position of we never got a strong enough testimonial or case study where we could convince clients through the merit of our previous work. Instead, we were pitching and selling. And that's not a great place to be in as a business owner, where you're trying to convince people to give you a chance, and really unsustainable long term when you're talking about the campaign ends and now what.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like you just highlighted this comes up in the Slack community pretty often among the freelance crowd, where they're trying to figure out, like, as say they've established a pretty good freelance business and they're trying to figure out like what's next for me. Often the best way to scale that business, or maybe the most obvious way to scale that business, is start subcontracting. That starts to look like a mini agency. For folks who are really good, maybe it becomes a full-scale agency. But as you just mentioned, there's so many challenges in getting that going. And oftentimes too, like the thing, at least in my just observation, the things that make someone a great freelance writer may not translate well into running an agency, which is a lot of selling, a lot of people management, a lot of process and workflow stuff. And so I think I'm one of the couple of reasons I'm sort of fascinated by Jolly is that you figured out this like really high leverage part of the agency, and then decided to turn that into its own business, which now is, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of challenges in running a company like Jolly, but you're sort of, at least in some ways, free from the constraints of running an agency, which, again, in my experience, is like really hard and complicated. It's just like, I've never been part of an agency where things were just easy.
Yeah, I kind of skipped over the root of your question, or the heart of your question, didn't I? It was like, here's what was really missing. We provided a deliverable, but the deliverable didn't have a clear ROI. So when you create content, we had promotion out of our hands. We weren't the ones uploading it. We didn't manage the CRO of the site. So we provided something to the clients, they paid for it. They could arguably assess it was decent content worth paying for. If they didn't get a clear ROI out of it afterwards, they needed to cut ties with us and pivot campaigns altogether, maybe not even do more on-site content. Finally, we hit upon this service where, again, there are some people who don't know what their ROI would be on this, but at least in the first couple of years we ran this, Morgan and I encountered enough clients that understood the value of the product and knew exactly what to do with it, that we were no longer trying to convince people of this. And once we had a couple clients done, we didn't even have to convince them on us. It was just so obvious for them, almost. I'm not you, Jimmy, but there was like an aha moment for you when we met, where once you got exposed and heard the idea of what we do, you're like, I get why someone would do this. It saves time, really demonstrable, the quality of the product. And for the right person who knows what to do with that product, the ROI is obvious. But our content agency days was tough. There's so many moving parts for a business owner commissioning a freelance writer's content that a lot of times they miss it on the promotion or the CRO. And then who catches the blame? The one who wrote the content. And that's a really tough position.
Yeah, totally. One of the things that we experience as Animals, I'm experiencing it now with our marketplace at Superpath, is that the deliverable from an agency or marketplace is the piece of content whether or not it's good is quite subjective. And then as you mentioned, like you don't have control over all these things. Like plenty of bad content performs really well if the person or team like executes all the other stuff really well. And then plenty of really good stuff doesn't perform well because you lack control and you can't take it all the way to the finish line. So I like as a business person, I'm thinking like, if I could deliver a spreadsheet and say like, I got you these backlinks. It's so concrete. It's so valuable. You've just like pulled all the subjectivity out of it and provided this like super high impact deliverable. That's just like, there's like, you can't like debate over whether it's good or bad. It's just good.
And so this was for us stumbling upon the notion of productizing service. For good and bad, right? It means there's not a lot of like creative wiggle room. Like we're not like a retainer based where we have a lot of our hours built into the service or anything. It's just pretty transactional. Like here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one.
Yeah. Could you just walk us through how Jolly SEO works? Like, could you just give us like an example of like you have a new customer coming on, like what happens?
Morgan used to do our sales for over a year, so he works in the client success heavily right now. So,
all right, I'll get back into sales mode here a little bit. Just kidding. Yeah, basically how it works is with Help a Reporter Out, it's a little different than some other types of link building. We need to be sending out content as the person, as the client. So essentially it's a ghostwriting service. So how it initially would work is somebody's interested in working with us. They would give us permission to send out pitches to journalists, little snippets, written things that they can use as quotes in their article on behalf of the client. So they give us permission to do that. We would simply assign that account to our website to one of our writers who would then read a little onboarding document that was given to the client. They fill it out, gives us some background information, just enough information so that one of our writers can kind of put themselves in the client's shoes. And once they have that, they can start sending out pitches to journalists and bloggers on Help a Reporter Out. At that point, it's kind of a numbers game, a waiting game. The skill of the writer makes a huge difference, but you're going to have to wait a while, maybe 1 month, 2 months before you start seeing live articles come up with the quotes that you've submitted. And with that, the backlink. So once we're waiting on that, and then we kind of put that through our internal system, which is just kind of a quality control measures, things like that, making sure it came from us and we present it to the client.
So if I'm allowed to piggyback,
yeah,
anyone who watches or is here with us right now that's thinking, how can I do this as a service myself or bring it to my employer? That's what Morgan described as the waiting period. That's the biggest pain point in delivering and executing this, both on the client side and on the implementation side. So you've got to send out emails. These can be published 24 hours later, or for the big names like Business Insider, 5-6 months later.
Oh, wow.
That's what we're working with. We say on average 4 to 8 weeks. So I like to say 6 weeks. But what Morgan said, I like to underscore, because if you're doing this as a freelancer, we can get into how you might want to structure compensating yourself here or somewhere else. But however you do that, you just want to make sure you communicate with either your boss or your clients. Like, listen, I'm going to get started now. I'm getting invested in this now. You're going to see consistent output in the sent box. And then we're all going to wait together to get the results that are coming. They're just going to take some time.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to add one thing, because that reminded me of my first experience working a Haro account. And I really got to stress, like, if this is something you try, just don't give up. I sent maybe, I had to wait 30 days of pitching quite regularly. And I was thinking, wow, maybe Greg just has this touch at doing this that I don't, because I'm not getting any responses. I'm not getting any wins. And then, of course, just like clockwork, they started to come in. So I think that's the number one thing that kind of deters people from using this strategy. They send a few pitches. Most of our clients even say it. Oh, I sent a few pitches, I didn't get anything,
And we've been good friends at that point for over 15 years. And even then, like, I still had to do another round of convincing Morgan of like, I swear, like, it will come. I did 2 accounts, like, it will come. So if you're doubting yourself or your client's doubting, like, that's totally should be expected, honestly.
Yeah.
We all feel that weird like waiting anxiety in the first 20, 30 days of an account.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Actually, after we first met a month or so ago, maybe I was like, I should go check out Help a Reporter out again. It's been years since I've messed around with it. So I signed up for the emails. It's overwhelming. There's a lot of them that come in. I sent a few pitches related to like entrepreneurship or marketing or something. You don't really know. It kind of goes in this black box. You're not really sure. Did they get it? Did they like it? Is anything going to happen with it? Did a million other people respond, or was it just me? And I gave up very quickly because I was like, I'm not going to do this every single day, most likely, which I guess is exactly why you create a service around it, because then you can outsource it and that works great. But you're making me think of your point about the delay in terms of like actually starting to get some of like the ROI from this kind of thing. I recall like 2014, 2015, working on a SaaS blog, trying really hard to build links and like just sort of hitting walls everywhere we went. Like it was just like so manual, so slow, so painful. So what we started doing was we would like write a big guide about, like in this case, email marketing. And then I would go out and like I would do my very best to try to like build links to that guide and whatever. And then we would write like what we would call meta content. So then I'd write a piece about like how I built X links to this guide. And then I would go and pitch that to blogs who covered SEO. That was really easy. And then what happened, like, I guess it's sort of serendipitous, like we got picked up by some SEO blogs who would then link back to the original piece that I was actually trying to build links to. They'd be like, oh, they wrote this guide, link to the guide. So it was like, I spent like weeks doing this, like just to create this like very indirect route to get published, to get links back to the thing I ultimately wanted. So I feel like I've seen that play out in a few different ways. There's this kind of like link building is often very indirect. You can't just say, here's this great thing I wrote. Can you link to it? Like you have to get creative and find some of these other ways to, maybe it's share a case study, like an SEO case study, like I mentioned. Maybe it's just like facilitating subject matter expertise from someone really smart and getting them, trying to get their quotes placed in big publications, which is more along the lines of what you guys do. Is Help a Reporter out really it, or are there other platforms like it that you found are worth spending time on?
So there's emerging platforms all the time. One of the things we've realized after being in this space for several years is that we maybe wrote off some too quickly, or I should say we wrote them off for our own purposes, but we should have revisited them regularly. So there's a few I'll name right now. There's, if you're in Australia, there's Source Bottle. If you are in the UK, I believe it's called Response Source. We don't leverage those because most of our clients are in the United States, but for people in those locations, you get those .uk and .au TLDs, which is useful for those businesses. And then another publication owned by the same company that owns Help a Reporter is called ProfNet. You do have to pay for that one. We like Help a Reporter because it's free. And then there's several platforms like ours that both aggregate and source new opportunities. So it's painful to shout out a competitor, but honestly, here's one that we wrote off for a long time, but we're leveraging today. And I feel comfortable sharing. Right now, if you jump on, it's called Terkel, Terkel. I honestly think their founder, Brett, is doing a fantastic job. Actually, you said—
We just published a Terkel piece on our blog. Yeah.
Your community knows Terkel already, so I'm not really introducing something new. I'm just kind of reinforcing it. Honestly, now is a good time to join. Kind of shooting ourselves in the foot here, but it's on the early stage of really shooting up. So he's aggressively pursuing new publications and the competition's low. So as people who look at all of our numbers, like we know that's an easy spot.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I tried it. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, their thing is you get a ready to publish article back as a publisher.
So you tried it on the reverse as a publisher.
I tried it on the other side. So I said, I give them a topic. I say, how can content marketers get buy-in from their leadership teams? Then, I have never used a tool like this on this side of the marketplace. They go out, they find content marketers who can speak to that challenge. They curate it into this piece, and then they send you a Google Doc that you can publish.
Well, let me
It's
try to
pretty.
poach you. We're launching our own, so you know, you
Oh,
just
interesting.
consider us next round of content, 2023, Jimmy. We'll just, you know, but no offense, Brett, wherever you are out there. No, it's great. It's a great idea. I don't know how your experience, and I hope it was positive because
Yeah.
it's a great.
Well, I feel like there's an interesting difference between like on Turkle. My understanding is that on the publisher side, it's primarily content people. You know, someone's running a blog, it's maybe associated with a SaaS company. In other words, it's probably not monetized via ads. It's probably monetized by, you know, trying to get people into a product. You know, my understanding of Help a Reporter Out is that the people on the publisher side are from, you know, big publishing companies. They're journalists who are
A
in
lot.
need of subject matter expertise to include in their articles. So it's look on their side, you know, they're looking for like snippets to include in a piece, which then they go and write rather than a company writing for it. Is that accurate?
That's really accurate in my opinion. I'm sure Morgan and I see this differently, but in my opinion, there's also quite a bit of marketers. So the way your contributions are published varies. Some of them are just a 1-2 sentence embedded in a longer article. Sometimes you can tell they built a section of an article around your thought. But there are whole publications which just block quote, you know, just 30 contributors, we call them listicles or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost, and I don't want to speak for another company, but it almost seems like it's a potential future pain point of theirs as we all start to think about these platforms and who we could find there, is that theirs isn't really that distinct because it was just journalists for many years. And I feel like there's a lot of marketers on there with corporate blogs or affiliate websites leveraging it, not the same as a Business Insider or a site of that caliber.
Yeah, really interesting. You know, I've for as long as I've been in content marketing, I think that the biggest thing that's wrong with it is that so often the people who are creating content don't have enough subject matter expertise in whatever topic they're writing about. And tools and services like this really help with that problem, right? Like, so like, for example, like I'm in Animals a few years ago, you know, we're creating hundreds of articles a month. Like our writers aren't subject matter experts on every single topic. It's impossible, you know? So like we had a system for like, how do you write a great article when you're not the subject matter expert on that thing? And the answers are, use data to tell your story, you know, interview people and facilitate their expertise, or in some cases just ghostwrite it on their behalf, you know. And there's like a couple other ways. Maybe you run surveys, you know, whatever you do with these things, like source information so that you can flesh out a good piece on the topic. So in some ways, I think of tools like Help a Reporter Out, like Turkle. There's one I use sometimes called, I think it's called Help a B2B Writer.
Yes.
Elise Dobson made it. It's on a smaller scale, but it's like just B2B. Like the idea of creating a marketplace to exchange subject matter expertise, I think is fascinating. I think that's really cool because it really, like, there is this benefit of getting, you know, getting press, getting links, which is fantastic, but it also solves this really key problem of like, I need subject matter expertise for my article. Where do I get it? It's really hard to go out and find individuals, but it's really easy to tap into a platform that already has a bunch of these people on it.
Yeah, that's been our vision with Link Sorcery since the start, since we started building it about 2 years ago.
Yeah, could you tell us about that? I don't want to cut you off in your answer here, but yeah, I'd be curious to learn more about how that works too. And
Yeah,
also,
no,
I feel like I should also just say, we don't normally talk about products and services this much on
yeah,
these.
yeah,
So
we
I just
can
want
keep it short.
No, I want to know, but I just want to also disclose like no financial incentives here. I just think it's cool and I want to know more about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. As much as I'll keep egging you, or like not egging you on, bothering you after this about sponsoring something with SuperPants, but so I'll try to keep it short because I didn't actually, you know, sponsor anything. That was our vision from the start too, because we see the value there. I freelanced for years and I conducted many a Zoom interview, phone call interview, things like that. Never in my time doing that did I even think to look for somewhere that would help me find these people. I didn't even once use Help a Reporter even, but much less like what we're talking about Turkle and what we hope Link Sorcery will provide is, you know, vetting the sources, merging the quotes, creating a draft for you to review. But we just decided to first serve the contributors. So people like us, because we were solving our agency pain point. Maybe anyone with us on this call or watching this later who are interested in getting coverage for themselves or clients or employers. And then we thought, once we've got the critical mass of contributors, then we have a network from knowing website owners and publishers over the years, but also we'll be doing outreach. Quite frankly, our network isn't like all of the publishing world, in case that needed to be said. So we believe we're approaching that point where we're at that critical mass and contributor numbers. We got enough diversity on the contributor side where we hope we can do that real exchange, provide value to the publishers, which makes it more sustainable for the contributors, because some of these bigger names that don't provide that value to the publishers, if you look for it, you'll see the critiques. It's not a secret. When people get swamped with hundreds of pitches and have to filter through a lot, and it's very painful for them to select the right quote. So we hope that we can provide enough value there to make it more sustainable for even the contributors, but encourage them to provide value. Maybe that was too much of a spiel, but that was part of the idea from the beginning. It's just sure taking us a long time, in our opinion, to get to this critical mass where we can finally start doing the two-sided relationship.
Yeah.
Morgan.
I definitely agree there. And I think it's a situation where initially we just saw this agency pain point of, these guys are going to be doing horror outreach. If they can save, 20% of their time, 30, 40, 50% of their time on their pitches by using Sourcery, it'll be a hit. But it was never the long-term vision. Definitely, I think if, it's a situation where, just 10 to 15 unique or at least non-horror related opportunities would make a huge difference there. And so that's the goal, at least to start with.
I'm curious, what makes for a good pitch? Like if an individual listening to this is like, all right, this is a great way for us to get press links to our site. I'm going to jump on, help a reporter out and start sending pitches out. Like what makes for a good one? And also, what's a good success rate? Like how, is it 1 in 10? Is it 1 in 5? Is it 1 in 100? Like how many placements should you expect if assuming you're doing a good job sending pitches out?
Yeah. So I think there's a few ground rules you want to take into consideration when you do a pitch. Don't be openly promotional about something or a product or anything like that. Nobody's going to want to write about your product. They're trying to get actual value that they can include in their article. So don't keep it promotional. Also, make sure you say hi to the actual journalist or blogger. Good email copy is important. You also want to end your pitch with all of the links that you have to your social, to your website, to make it really easy so that when they go and include your pitch, they're just going to be like, grab the URL really quick, put it in. And then I usually do that as the signature at the end. But yeah, you just want to have that, your LinkedIn, Facebook, website, all hyperlinked, and maybe even spell out the URL. And then in terms of the body of the pitch, I think it's good to have a few concise, clear points that can easily be put into sound bites or snippets. You don't want to have a large paragraph of text. I usually even do like a little bolded subtitles for each little point I'm making. And then I think the last thing I would add is if you do research on Google with your pitch, don't just go for the first results that come up, because everyone else that's sending these contributions is going to be including that too. So you want to find something really unique and out there that the journalists will use that'll separate yourself. Because like Greg was saying, I put up a test opportunity once. I got 200 submissions within days. So
I'll piggyback there if that's cool.
Yeah.
I agree completely with everything Morgan said. I mean, the first one that jumped out, I gotta underscore is like, treat them as a person. This isn't and we're never knocking paid backlinking. That's a different space in SEO. Just to emphasize in this space, remember that you're hoping for an end result, but this person's under no obligation to provide us with anything. And so we're here to make their job easier. On the receiving end is another freelance or in-house writer like us, right? Like they're just doing their work for their boss or client. So we want to, what Morgan said about keep it short and sweet, like we call it copy pastable or cut and pastable, so that they don't need to do any editing at all. That's another thing I would underscore. And then I guess just to go into your other question on the data side, so there are some people who, for every 5 of these pitches they send, they get 1 positive result. Now, what you're after can depend. Some of us want backlinks. Some of us want only explicitly in linking. There are links called no follow, and there's others that we kind of term do follow. Some of us want only the do follow. So what you determine as a success depends on you. You know, if you're just going for PR value, you don't even care about the link. But just really roughly, 1 out of 5 is like an amazing writer with really good alignment with the subject matter. Another factor for your success is who is your figurehead reaching out. If you reach out as Greg, the marketing specialist, they may not care what me as a marketing specialist has to say. But if you're reaching out as my boss, the CMO, they probably will care. So at least as compared to me, the marketing specialist. So even though it's nice to promote ourselves, you might want to try to get someone a little further in their career on board with you writing as them, if the goal is to represent the company. And then, you know, those factors and other things Morgan described, the body, all that stuff, your research ability, you can do it as, let's say, poor as 1 out of 30 emails. So for us as an agency, obviously, we think about the numbers and what makes sense for our business model or client expectations. As an individual, if you're doing it yourself, I think you have to think about, like, how much time do I spend on each email? How much is this result worth? And does the time and result match up to be a service worth executing? Just to put it out there, I wouldn't spend more than 15 minutes on your average email. Maybe if it's Business Insider, you spend 40 minutes. But they really do receive hundreds of these pitches, so you don't want to spend an hour and a half on a pitch that may or may not get opened.
Yeah, that's correct. 1 in 30 sounds painful, but I could totally see how it happened. Also, I would imagine it's pretty difficult to track. Like if say you're pitching a Business Insider and they don't publish a story for 6 months, you may have long forgotten you sent that pitch. Like, is there an easy way to track this stuff, or is it just a matter of like checking your Ahrefs account for new links and trying to connect the dots between, like, okay, yeah, we sent that pitch, and okay, this is the article?
Yeah, actually, it's much more complicated than you'd think it should be. So to start with, really the amount of journalists or bloggers who will actually reach back out to you and say, hey, congratulations, we featured you in this article, here's a link. That's maybe 20%. And that's probably
high for me. I'd say 10. But
yeah, that's interesting.
Morgan's more polite than I am.
So, you know, that means you're going to have to go out and find the links yourself. And in our agency, it's become really a whole operation of its own because of the importance of catching every single link. Now, if I was doing this for my own business and I didn't really need to have a record per se, it wouldn't matter as much. You know, you just know they're out there and you see the results. Ahrefs might pick it up eventually. But I will say Ahrefs does not pick up everything, especially not in a timely manner. So we have a whole list of Google searches that we use, usually some combination of the figurehead's name, the position. So, you know, that'll pick up those as soon as when they come up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like you run them as like a Google alert so that you can keep track of.
Beyond that, even we tried the Google alerts, it doesn't really pick up everything. We have, I think it's 5 to 10 different search variations that our team members run on an almost daily basis. Again, I wouldn't do this for my own business, but
I'm cutting Morgan off, but it's such a pain point of ours that we have specialists at our company. We call them link hunters. We have a team.
No way.
We it's a line in our overhead, right? Like
very interesting
on this role. Actually, you're reminding me, doing me a favor. It goes back again to the value of an exchange platform. It's something if we provide enough value to the publishers, which is something I think missing in the space right now, and damn it, Brett, if you watch this recording, don't beat us to it. But if we provide enough value to the publishers, hopefully we can add more value to the contributors and require the publishers, like, look, if you're going to have the benefit of receiving these pitches for free, then you have the obligation to at least click an automatic reply to someone that I'm not using your pitch, or I may use your pitch.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Use your pitch, and then give us the link when you publish so we can notify them for you. You don't even have to email them. It's such a pain point in it. Like you said, it's a black box, right?
Yeah.
And anybody coming into the space, Morgan said it earlier in this call, you have to have that patience right now in the first 30 to 60 days, because right now there is nothing in the system that requires anyone to respond to any contributor.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I wonder if part of this is like the issue of help a reporter out, or some of these other tools that, like, because all of it happens over email, it gets messy and confusing and whatever. I responded to a help a B2B writer out pitch like probably last week, and it was a writer writing for a B2B SaaS blog, curious about if anyone has started a business during the pandemic, what did you learn, or something along those lines. And so I responded, because I started Superpath June 2020, and it was really interesting. This woman responded back and said, "Hey, this is great. I have a few follow-up questions. The article will be published in 2 weeks and you'll be in it." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." So, and then I went and responded to a couple more, because I was like, "Oh, that feels good. I want more of that." I'm guessing that's a really messy problem for the help a reporter outs, the help a B2B writer outs of the world, just to keep track of all that kind of thing, unless they sort of force you to stay within their platform all the time.
Yeah, and that's, help a reporter. I believe help a B2B writer shows the person's email address. So
yes,
that's different. Help a reporter gives them a little protection by creating anonymous emails. So it keeps you using help a reporter, but you're not necessarily on the platform. Like you said, you're still in the So that, again, potentially on the roadmap for us. We're not set on it, but you did remind me of, potentially we would want everyone to be on the platform. Obviously, we'd have business motives there for us, but it would possibly force that response. We could force that response in a way that, if it's just through email, what are we going to honor system that you're like replying to people?
Yeah, totally. Do you have any advice for the folks on the content team who are like, we want to use our founder or our executives name, image, likeness to help us build links to the stuff that we're doing? Because in my experience, mostly in doing thought leadership content, it's like, you want to use these people. They have good ideas. They're smart. They're well known. So if you could ghostwrite an article on their behalf, you have a much better chance of getting it widely viewed, rather than it coming from the non-subject matter expert, or at least the less well-known one. I could imagine that you end up with the same problem. It's like, how do you get the person to trust you to use their name, image, likeness, ideas, voice, quotes, whatever, to go out and do this work?
Morgan,
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure, I'll jump in here. This is, great question. This comes up all the time. It's a huge pain point, and probably, if not, it's in the top 3 reasons why a sale does not move forward. I would even go as far as to say is that, and we try to address it in a few ways, and we've gotten pretty good at it. But I think that there's a few areas that are just kind of no-go areas that when you're pitching or ghostwriting, you just want to avoid. So the one is definitely avoid personal life details. Another one is, if they're you got to understand what kind of field this person is. So if they're in the legal field, if they're in medicine or something, their biggest worry is going to be that you say something under their name that's either incorrect, or promoting, in the case of like doctors or something like that, promoting a specific prescription or something that comes off as specific legal, medical, financial advice. So when I speak to somebody, I assure them that we're not going to give any specific professional advice that could be taken out of context by a reader to say, like, I read it and this person was suggesting I take these exact steps. Rather, we try to do general kind of truths in the field that we state that are just very topical, that kind of thing. Keep it topical. I think I'm kind of going all over the place, so I'll let Greg jump in if he has anything, but I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
No, I was excited to answer this one, and I kind of got lost in your answers because they were good. That's exactly how I would do it too. Personal, religion, politics, like that's those three. Frame it to your CMO, C-suite, whatever, or client. Like I assure you, I will never touch those. Next, they're very concerned about the 20, 30 years they've invested in their career. So do not F that up, and assure them, like, you've trusted me to write content for your company. I'm going to treat this as seriously or next level seriousness. This is you we're talking about. And it goes to what Morgan said, like, assure them, first of all, any specific advice is off the table. Like, I'm not advising people that next week Tesla's a good buy. I'm not telling them, like, if you snore at night, you should probably put a clothespin on your nose, or like anything like that, that definitely. But back to what Morgan said, quite honestly, and this is maybe just unhelpful, but you're just going to have to deal with the fact that some people are never going to be comfortable with having someone else write for them.
Yeah.
Here's a couple more things you can try if you think you have a chance at this. This seems silly, but just to point it out, everybody that's famous that I've ever heard of has had a ghostwriter. Every presidents, actors, whatever, whoever they are. And this also helps me when people have some people have an issue ethically with ghostwriting. And I'm like, I respect that, but name whichever president you liked. Somebody wrote the speech that made you like endeared to them. But it wasn't them. So, I mean, I like Lincoln. He wrote a lot of his own shit, but and then practically speaking, a few more things that I think you could do. You can have a GDoc where you find some opportunities. Maybe these are lost ones to you because the deadline will elapse before the person will review them, but draft some replies and see what they think and be like, does this seem like the kind of quote you would be okay with having in a Business Insider or a corporate blog or something like that? Because this is what the kind of stuff I would be aiming for, or give me your feedback on my parameters here, because I can stay in parameters. If they're okay with that and it looks like you're moving forward, I usually try to skip that step, but maybe you need that baby step. Then you tell them, look, I'm going to pick live opportunities. They're going to have real deadlines because media cycles happen on deadline. I'm going to draft replies. I want you to promise me by 10 a.m. on Wednesday you're going in the inbox and you're hitting send on everything that looks good. And the ones that don't look good, you're giving me really explicit feedback on why that's not workable for you, so that either we can determine if we can do this together or we can't do this together. So that's stuff that's helped us in the past on a couple transactions. And just to remind anybody watching this, unless you're in our position of a SEO agency, which, let's face it, has like the rep that like lawyers do, I like to compare us to, you're already kind of in if you're an in-house marketer or a freelancer that's working with them. So like we literally had a skeleton as our logo, a pirate skeleton. So like we had some stuff to overcome that you at least don't. Like we're the SEO, the agency, the building a brand. You've got a relationship. So I would, point to some of the stuff you fulfilled responsibly and remind them you're still the same person. You want to do something even more powerful. And at the end of the day, they get all the credit. Like they are going to get in these big publications.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I could imagine one way to pitch this to like a CMO, for example, would be to say like, okay, when we create a piece of content, we have a whole process for repurposing that in many different ways. So like, we turn it into 5 tweets. We have a condensed version that goes out on LinkedIn. We use the stats and quotes in our ebooks. And so you could add this type of thing to that repurposing plan so that you plan for, particularly for a piece of like thought leadership content where you're talking about industry trends or the future of XYZ, that you're pulling out sound bites from it that are maybe planted there even, so that you could then go out and pitch to a publication that is covering.
That's super cool, because there's these evergreen topics, right? They
Yeah.
always are going to come up, and we've talked about that. It was like over a year ago or something, Morgan, but we were coming at the reverse. We were like, what if we took all the pitches that were never published and offered to clients to stitch them together and create a piece of content that
That's interesting.
But like, we haven't done it, but we send 5,000 of these a month. Like, we've got some unused ones. We could, at this point, enough time has elapsed to know like there's not any duplicate being published at some point. So
yeah, that's interesting.
But that's super cool. See, and that goes full circle to the beginning of the convo. You guys at Animals, I had heard of Animals a while ago, well before we connected, and probably applied there as a freelance writer at some point or something. But look at all the stuff you're doing with a single piece of content. Like, that's what we never did, right, Morgan? So yeah, there's definitely multi-purpose uses for this stuff. I hadn't thought about that. You could pull the quotes that are pre-approved, to your point. That's
I like that one. So in my time at Animals, I was there for a couple of years. I wrote about 50 blog posts for the Animals blog. And what I found in doing that, like I noticed this like pattern recognition where there was like a few principles that would come up over and over and over again, always from like a slightly different angle. The context was a little different, but like a couple things came up over and over and over again. We never did this, but I could definitely imagine you package up those principles, you have the quotes, the sound bites ready to go, because then you could reference all kinds of things on the site. And then those become kind of like your content values. This is the type of stuff that I find that most, I hate to generalize, but like most content teams are not organized to that degree. Like certainly we weren't at Animals, where you like go take it far enough that there's like a really clear, very well executed content repurposing plan for every piece that goes out. Like that usually doesn't happen.
Well, I just admitted we're in that. What I also would like to propose is a majority of us. Like I just said, like thousands of our emails a month.
Yeah.
It's like that, write off that expense. I mean, not literally on tax, but like that's gone.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's so interesting. I find, just like side note, I find that like in talking to lots and lots of people who run content teams, most of them would be best served by picking like boilerplate off the shelf content strategy and just executing it perfectly, than doing what most teams do, which is kind of like dream up this big fancy strategy and then execute it like halfway, or they get to the point at least where they're creating really good content, but they're not taking it to the finish line with all of the other stuff, the content repurposing, the refreshing the old content, getting the sound bites in the hands of the right people so that you can build press or links. That stuff is harder to execute on when your strategy is fancier. It's actually easier to do when your strategy is simple. And patience is like is often the biggest issue with content strategy, at least from what I've seen, is like, if you could just stick to the simple plan for a long time, you're more likely to be successful. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys. We're running up on time a little bit. If folks have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Now is the time. I guess one more question for you guys. Do you have any like great stories from like customers you work with? Like, is there like one or two you could point to that you're like, that it was something really unexpected?
Don't say it, Morgan.
I won't say it.
I saw that smile.
I won't say it.
Don't say
it.
No, we'll keep it pretty anonymous because that one's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh yeah, anonymous for sure. Yeah.
But we can also share a good one. He's gonna share an embarrassing one. I saw
there was one article where
I won't spit the coffee out. Okay.
I'll say a writer felt that somebody should share their story about, I think, how it was they fell asleep in their office chair and I can't remember what was it, their team walked in on them or something like that.
It was because it was for an article on yoga. So they fell asleep in an office chair doing yoga. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. I've fallen asleep in plenty of office chairs. That's
yeah,
great.
well, and on a positive note for the client rep, I mean, the thing that really set off a light bulb for me with this one that really convinced me, like, Morgan and I got to try this, is I got a client in the Wall Street Journal. And granted, it was not even adjacent to their company's offering. It was just like an article on recruitment, and I got a quote in about his past, and how like he likes to tap athletic talent because of their work ethic. And the company was in the tech space, but just the fact that me being a total amateur, this was my second client, I've been doing it maybe 4 months, and it wasn't even a backlink, so it doesn't fit like the Jolly SEO model. But this client, this is an international company, very large, and to get them in the Wall Street Journal is a win. It's just a win, pure and simple. So once we realize we can do that with this tactic, that's what made me reach out to Morgan and like, I think we got to stop playing around and doing like 10 blog post campaigns for people. Like I think we can get people in the Wall Street Journal and Business Insider and Time Magazine and all this stuff. Like,
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah,
that's super cool. That's super cool. I feel like a tactic I would like a takeaway from that would be like, I think sometimes companies bump into challenges with distribution and promotion, link building, because they're too focused on like if you sell like a human resources SaaS product, you want to always be known for that thing. But like your sales team has expertise on sales, your dev team has expertise on software development, and sometimes leveraging some of that to get into those like sort of like you can still get that mention, and it may not add the exact same credibility if it were like a list of the best HR SaaS products. But
just don't start a competitor to us, Jimmy. You're too like fast for us. That took us like a year to come around to like having multiple figureheads for each client. And
that's interesting.
So.
Well,
That's 100% true. You should do that if you watch this. Like listen to Jimmy on that one.
Yeah,
that's right.
Indirect link building is the only link building I know. Like finding creative workarounds to getting to the thing you actually want, like an example of this from animals would be like trying to help clients rank their bottom of funnel content better. So like the content that was actually about their product, it's like impossible to build links to those pages, but it's not that difficult to create a benchmark report. It's like very top of funnel. Don't gate it, get original data. It's easier to build links to something like that, for example. So, people call that stuff like link bait. And I guess that's one way to look at it. But like what we found was the indirect benefit of it was that if you can build links to the stuff that's easy to build links to, it's a lot easier. Like the rising tide lifts all ships. It's a lot easier to then get your other posts that actually have an impact on the business ranking better as well.
Well, I know we're trying to wrap up, but we should have said this at the start. Just disclaimer or disclosure, let's put it. We do other types of link building. You can get to those even, like you said, top of funnel. Just so you know, this journalist outreach stuff, it's even one step removed. We're talking homepage, just homepage.
Yeah. That's a good call out. It's not.
Some people say they have success doing other, stuff, but definitely never money page, like bottom of funnel. But yeah, we're just homepage straight up. That's where we get conversions.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's an important distinction. It's not pure content distribution. It's, I guess digital PR is probably the right word for it. So super cool. I think that, we're just about out of time here. Tell us where people can find you. I mean, obviously we're going to publish a recording. We'll link to Jolly SEO, your LinkedIn profiles, Link Sorcery. Anywhere else we should point folks?
Did you already mention the Facebook group?
Oh, no. What's up with the Facebook group?
Oh, okay. Well, that's just a group that we've set up for discussing this type of topics, but also generally white hat link building. I can drop the link in the chat or something like that if that's helpful. But that's a cool group. Yeah, we have about 1,000 members there. It's really just a lot of productive discussion. It's not like a big promo type group or anything like that. But
Monday through Friday, which is right now. Good. But thank you, Jimmy. Like, thanks, Morgan, for remembering the group. Everywhere you describe is cool, but really, like, I appreciate the chance to be on here.
Yeah, no, thank you guys both for coming. Like I said, I've not come across something like this before. I'm really excited about it. Really pumped for you guys. So thank you for coming on here and sharing your knowledge, and hopefully we'll see you in the Slack group.
Yeah. Thanks, Jimmy.
Well, thanks guys. Take care.